Namaste, welcome. So I'm going to be reading some more from Be As You Are with Sri Ramana Maharshi. Okay. So I'm reading from the chapter Self-Inquiry. And yeah, so I'll just keep reading from this. I was going to just read anyway, and so I felt it would be nice to just share for anyone who wants to watch. And so I read, I think last week, and I stopped on page 37, just in the middle, and so I'm going to just pick up right where I left off. Thank you. Satguru Shri Muji Ji Ki Jai. Satguru Shri Ananda Ji Ki Jai. And I don't even know that anyone will be joining live, and that's okay. I think it's still very early in the morning right now for India, and probably very late for Europe, and I don't know, the rest of the world. So, and that's fine. I'm happy to just read to myself too, and it's nice if anyone wants to join, but maybe others will join later. But good either way. And so the question to Ramana, the questioner says, when I am engaged in inquiry as to the source from which the I springs, I arrive at a stage of stillness of mind, beyond which I find myself unable to proceed further. I have no thought of any kind, and there is an emptiness, a blankness. A mild light pervades, and I feel that it is myself, bodiless. I have neither cognition nor vision of body and form. The experience lasts nearly half an hour and is pleasing. Would I be correct in concluding that all that was necessary to secure eternal happiness, that is freedom or salvation, or whatever one calls it, was to continue the practice till this experience could be maintained for hours, days, and months together? And Ramana says, this does not mean salvation. Such a condition is termed manolia, or temporary stillness of thought. Manolia means concentration, temporarily arresting the movement of thoughts. As soon as this concentration ceases, thoughts, old and new, rush in as usual, and even if this temporary lulling of mind should last 1,000 years, it will never lead to a total destruction of thought, which is what is called liberation from birth and death. The practitioner must therefore be ever on the alert and inquire within as to who has this experience, who realizes its pleasantness. Without this inquiry, he will go into a long trance or deep sleep, yoga nidra. Due to the absence of a proper guide at this stage of spiritual practice, many have been deluded and fallen a prey to a false sense of liberation, and only a few have managed to reach the goal safely. And then Ramana says, the following story illustrates the point very well. A yogi was doing penance, tapas, for a number of years on the banks of the Ganges. When he had attained a high degree of concentration, he believed that continuance in that stage for prolonged periods constituted liberation, and practiced it. One day, before going into deep concentration, he felt thirsty and called to his disciple to bring a little drinking water from the Ganges. But before the disciple arrived with the water, he had gone into Yoga Nidra and remained in that state for countless years, during which time much water flowed under the bridge. When he woke up from this experience, he immediately called, "Water, water." But there was neither his disciples nor the Ganges in sight. The first thing which he asked for was water, because before going into deep concentration, the topmost layer of thought in his mind was water. And by concentration, however deep and prolonged it might have been, he had only been able temporarily to lull his thoughts. When he regained consciousness, this topmost thought flew up with all the speed and force of a flood breaking through the dikes. If this is the case with regard to a thought, which took shape immediately before he sat for meditation, there is no doubt that thoughts, which took root earlier, would also remain unannihilated. If annihilation of thought is liberation, if annihilation of thoughts is liberation, can he be said to have attained salvation? Sadhakas, which means seekers. So seekers rarely understand the difference between this temporary stilling of the mind, manolia, and permanent destruction of thoughts, mananosa. I don't know how to say that. So I'll read that part again. If annihilation of thoughts is liberation, can he be said to have attained salvation? Seekers rarely understand the difference between this temporary stilling of the mind and permanent destruction of thoughts. In the permanent destruction of thoughts, in the temporary destruction of thoughts, the manolia state, there is a temporary subsidence of thought waves. And though this temporary period may even last for 1,000 years, thoughts, which are thus temporarily stilled, rise up soon as the manolia ceases, as a state ceases. One must therefore watch one's spiritual progress carefully. One must not allow oneself to be overtaken by such spells of stillness of thought. The moment one experiences this, one must revive consciousness and inquire within as to who it is who experiences this stillness, while not allowing any thoughts to intrude. One must not, at the same time, be overtaken by this deep sleep, yoga nidra, or self-hypnotism. Though this is a sign of progress toward the goal, yet it is also the point where the divergence between the road to liberation and yoga nidra takes place. The easy way, the direct way, the shortest cut to salvation is the inquiry method. By such inquiry, he will drive the thought force deeper till it reaches its source and merges therein. I'm going to read that one again. By such inquiry, you will drive the thought force deeper till it reaches its source and merges therein. It is then that you will have the response from within and find that you rest there, destroying all thoughts once and for all. Questioner. This I thought rises from me, but I do not know the self. Ramana. All these are only mental concepts. You are now identifying yourself with a wrong I, which is the I thought. This I thought rises and sinks, whereas the true significance of I is beyond both. There cannot be a break in your being. You who slept are also now awake. There is no unhappiness in your deep sleep, whereas it exists now. What is it that has happened now so that this difference is experienced? There was no I thought in your deep sleep, whereas it is present now. The true I is not apparent, and the false I is parading itself. This false I is the obstacle to your right knowledge. Find out from where this false I arises. Then it will disappear. You will then be only what you are, that is, absolute being. Questioner. How to do it? I have not succeeded so far. Bhagavan. Search for the source of the I thought. That is all that one has to do. The universe exists on account of the I thought. If that ends, there is an end to misery also. The false I will end only when its source is sought. Again, people often ask how the mind is controlled. I say to them, show me the mind, and then you will know what to do. The fact is that the mind is only a bundle of thoughts. How can you extinguish it? By the thought of doing so, or by a desire. Your thoughts and desires are part and parcel of the mind. Your mind is simply fattened by new thoughts rising up. Therefore, it is foolish to attempt to kill the mind by means of the mind. The only way of doing it is to find its source and hold on to it. The mind will then fade away of its own accord. Yoga teaches, okay, I'm not going to know how to say this, but I'll try. Yoga teaches Chitta Vritta Nirodha, which means control of the activities of the mind. So yoga teaches control of the activities of the mind. But I say Atma Vichara, which is self-investigation. This is the practical way. Control of the activities of the mind is brought about in a sleep, swoon, or by starvation. As soon as the cause is withdrawn, there is a reemergence of thoughts. Of what use is it then? In the state of stupor, there is peace and no misery, but misery recurs when the stupor is removed. So control is useless and cannot be of lasting benefit. How then can the benefit be made lasting? It is by finding the cause of misery. Misery is due to the perception of objects. If they are not there, there will be no contingent thoughts, and so misery is wiped off. How will objects cease to be is the next question. The scriptures and the sages say that the objects are only mental creations. They have no substantive being. Investigate the matter and ascertain the truth of the statement. The result will be the conclusion that the objective world is in the subjective consciousness. The self is thus the only reality which permeates and also envelops the world. Since there is no duality, no thoughts will arise to disturb your peace. This is realization of the self. The self is eternal, and so also is realization. Spiritual practice consists in withdrawal within the self every time you are disturbed by thought. It is not concentration or destruction of the mind, but withdrawal into the self. Questioner. Why is concentration ineffective? Bhagavan. To ask the mind to kill the mind is like making the thief the policeman. He will go with you and pretend to catch the thief, but nothing will be gained. So you must turn inward and see from where the mind rises, and then it will cease to exist. Questioner. In turning the mind inwards, are we not still employing the mind? Bhagavan. Of course we are employing the mind. It is well known and admitted that only with the help of the mind can the mind be killed. But instead of setting about saying, there is a mind and I want to kill it, you begin to seek the source of the mind. And you find the mind does not exist at all. The mind turned inwards results in thoughts and objects. Wait, I read that one. The mind turned outwards results in thoughts and objects. Turned inwards, it becomes itself, the self. Questioner. Even so, I do not understand. I, you say, is the wrong I now. How to eliminate the wrong I? Bhagavan. You need not eliminate the wrong I. How can I eliminate itself? All you need to do, all that you need do is find out its origin and abide there. Your efforts can extend only thus far. Then the beyond will take care of itself. You are helpless there. No effort can reach it. I'll just read that one again. You need not eliminate the wrong I. How can I eliminate itself? All that you need do is to find out its origin and abide there. Your efforts can extend only thus far. Then the beyond will take care of itself. You are helpless there. No effort can reach it. Questioner. If I am always here and now, why do I not feel so? Bhagavan. That is it. Who says it is not felt? Does the real I say it or the false I? Examine it. You will find it is the wrong I. The wrong I is the obstruction. It has to be removed in order that the true I may not be hidden. The feeling that I have not realized is the obstruction to realization. In fact, it is already realized, and there is nothing more to be realized. Otherwise, the realization will be new. If it has not existed so far, it must take place hereafter. What is born will also die. If realization is not eternal, it is not worth having. Therefore, what we seek is not that which must happen afresh. It is only that which is eternal, but not now known due to obstructions. It is that which we seek. All that we need do is remove the obstruction. That which is eternal is not known to be so because of ignorance. Ignorance is the obstruction. Get over the ignorance, and all will be well. The ignorance is identical with the I thought. Find its source, and it will vanish. The I thought is like a spirit, which, although not palpable, rises up simultaneously with the body, flourishes, and disappears with it. The body consciousness is the wrong I. Give up this body consciousness. It is done by seeking the source of the I. The body does not say, I am. It is you who say, I am the body. Find out who this I is. Seeking its source, it will vanish. Questioner. How long can the mind stay or be kept in the heart? Bhagavan. The period extends by practice. Questioner. What happens at the end of the practice? Bhagavan. The mind returns to the present normal state. Unity in the heart is replaced by a variety of perceived phenomena. This is called the outgoing mind. The heart-going mind is called the resting mind. When one daily practices more and more in this manner, the mind will become extremely pure due to the removal of its defects, and the practice will become so easy that the purified mind will plunge into the heart as soon as the inquiry is commenced. Questioner. Is it possible for a person who once had the experience of Satchit Ananda in meditation to identify himself with the body when out of meditation? Bhagavan. Yes, it is possible, but he gradually loses the identification in the course of his practice. In the floodlight of the self, the darkness of illusion dissipates forever. Experience gained without rooting out all the vasanas cannot remain steady. Efforts must be made to eradicate the vasanas. Knowledge can only remain unshaken after all the vasanas are rooted out. Vasanas means tendencies, negative tendencies. We have to contend against age-long mental tendencies. They will all go. Only they go comparatively soon in the case of those who have made sadhana in the past, and later in the case of others. Questioner. Do these tendencies go gradually, or will they suddenly all disappear one day? I ask this because although I have remained here for a long time, I do not perceive any gradual change in me. Bhagavan. When the sun rises, does the darkness go gradually or all at once? So beautiful. Bhagavan. Questioner. How can I tell if I am making progress with my inquiry? Bhagavan. The degree of the absence of thoughts is the measure of your progress towards self-realization. But self-realization itself does not admit of progress. It is ever the same. The self remains always in realization. The obstacles are thoughts. Progress is measured by the degree of removal of the obstacles to understanding that the self is always realized. So thoughts must be checked by seeking to whom they arise. So you go to their source where they do not arise. Questioner. Doubts are always arising, hence my question. Bhagavan. A doubt arises and is cleared. Another arises and that is cleared, making way for yet another. And so it goes on. So there is no possibility of clearing away all doubts. See to whom the doubts arise. Go to their source and abide in it. Then they cease to arise. That is how doubts are to be cleared. Questioner. Should I go on asking, who am I, without answering? Who asks whom? Which attitude should be in the mind at the time of inquiry? What is I, the self, or the ego? Bhagavan. In the inquiry, who am I is the ego. The question really means, what is the source or origin of this ego? You need not have any attitude in the mind. All that is required is that you must give up the attitude that you are the body of such and such a description, with such and such a name, etc. There is no need to have an attitude about your real nature. It exists as it always does. It is real, and no bhavana, which means attitude. Questioner. But is it not funny that the I should be searching for the I? Does not the inquiry, who am I, turn out in the end to be an empty formula? Or am I to put the question to myself endlessly, repeating it like some mantra? Bhagavan. Self-inquiry is certainly not an empty formula, and it is more than the repetition of any mantra. If the inquiry, who am I, were a mere mental questioning, it would not be of much value. The very purpose of self-inquiry is to focus the entire mind at its source. It is not, therefore, a case of one I searching for another I. Much less is self-inquiry an empty formula, for it involves an intense activity of the entire mind to keep steadily poised in pure self-awareness. Question. Is it enough if I spend some time in the mornings and some time in the evenings for this self-inquiry, this self-investigation? Or should I do it always, even when I am writing or walking? Bhagavan. What is your real nature? Is it writing, walking, or being? The one unalterable reality is being. Until you realize that state of pure being, you should pursue the inquiry. If once you are established in it, there will be no further worry. No one will inquire into the source of thoughts unless thoughts arise. So long as you think, I am walking or I am writing, inquire, who does it? Questioner. If I go on rejecting thoughts, can I call it vichara? Bhagavan. It may be a stepping stone, but really vichara begins when you cling to yourself and are already of the mental movement, and are already off the mental movement, the thought waves. Questioner. Then vichara is not intellectual. Bhagavan. No. It is antara vichara, inner quest. Holding the mind and investigating, it is advised for a beginner. But what is mind after all? It is a projection of the self. See for whom it appears and from where it rises. The I thought will be found to be the root cause. Go deeper. The I thought disappears, and there is an infinitively expanded I consciousness. Questioner. I asked Mother in Sri Aurobindo Ashram the following question. I keep my mind blank, without thoughts arising, so that God might show himself in his true being. But I do not perceive anything. The reply was to this effect: the attitude is right. The power will come down from above. It is a direct experience. So should I do anything further? Bhagavan. Be what you are. There is nothing to come down or become manifest. All that is necessary is to lose the ego, that which is always there. Even now, you are that. You are not apart from it. The blank is seen by you. You are there to see the blank. What do you wait for? The thought I have not seen, the expectation to see, and the desire of getting something are all the workings of the ego. You have fallen into snares of the ego. The ego says all these and not you. Be yourself and nothing more. Read that part again. Be what you are. There is nothing to come down or become manifest. All that is necessary is to lose the ego. That which is always there. Even now, you are that. You are not apart from it. The blank is seen by you. You are there to see the blank. What do you wait for? The thought I have not seen, the expectation to see, and the desire of getting something are all the workings of the ego. You have fallen into snares of the ego. The ego says all these and not you. Be yourself and nothing more. Once born, you reach something. If you reach it, you return also. Therefore, leave off all this verbiage. Be as you are. See who you are and remain as the self, free from birth, going, coming, and returning. Questioner. How is one to know the self? Bhagavan. Knowing the self means being the self. Can you say that you do not know the self? Though you cannot see your own eyes, and though not provided with a mirror to look in, do you deny the existence of your eyes? Similarly, you are aware of the self, even though the self is not objectified. Or do you deny yourself because it is not objectified? When you say, I cannot know the self, it means absence in terms of relative knowledge, because you have been so accustomed to relative knowledge that you identify yourself with it. Such wrong identity has forged the difficulty of not knowing the obvious self because it cannot be objectified. And then you ask, how is one to know the self? Questioner. You talk of being. Being what? Bhagavan. Your duty is to be, and not be this or that. I am that I am sums up the whole truth. The method is summed up in the words, be still. What does stillness mean? It means destroy yourself. Because any form or shape is the cause of trouble. Give up the notion that I am so and so. All that is required to realize the self is to be still. What can be easier than that? Hence, self-knowledge is the easiest to attain. The truth of oneself alone is worthy to be scrutinized and known. Taking it as the target of one's attention, one should keenly know it in the heart. This knowledge of oneself will be revealed only to the consciousness which is silent, clear, and free from the activity of the agitated and suffering mind. Know that the consciousness which always shines in the heart is the formless self I, and which is known by one's being still, without thinking about anything as existent or non-existent, alone is the perfect reality. Know that the consciousness which always shines in the heart is the formless self, I, and which is known by one's being still, without thinking about anything as existent or non-existent. Alone is the perfect reality. Thank you.